Have you ever felt disrespected, but couldn't quite put your finger on why? The words weren't harsh, the tone wasn't cruel, yet something inside you whispered, "You're not being valued." That is exactly how avoidants operate. Their disrespect isn't loud, it's hidden. And that's what makes it so damaging. When an avoidant withholds communication, it may seem at first like a simple need for space, but in reality, it often functions as a subtle form of disrespect that can deeply wound a relationship. Communication is not just about words, it is the bridge that allows two people to connect, resolve conflicts, and build intimacy. When one partner deliberately chooses silence, retreat, or emotional shutdown as a coping mechanism, the other partner is left feeling unheard, unimportant, and abandoned. This isn't merely about avoiding conflict. It's about refusing to honor the emotional needs of the person you claim to love. The damage lies in the ambiguity. Silence creates confusion, forcing the partner to fill in the blanks with self-doubt. Did I do something wrong? Are they losing interest? Am I the problem? Over time, this erodes confidence and fosters an unhealthy dynamic where one person feels like they're constantly chasing clarity while the other holds power through withdrawal. What makes this behavior so destructive is that it's easy to justify. An avoidant may say, "I just need time to think," or "I don't want to argue right now." On the surface, those statements seem harmless. But when silence becomes a repeated pattern, when it replaces honest dialogue, it communicates something deeper. Your feelings are not important enough to address. It sends the message that your emotional needs can be delayed, ignored, or dismissed altogether. This type of withholding is not the calm maturity of a person avoiding unnecessary conflict. It's the silent refusal to engage, which is Yule. Timately, a denial of intimacy. Respect in a relationship requires transparency, even in discomfort. A loving partner doesn't vanish into silence when things get hard. They stay present even if the conversation is messy. Avoidants, however, often struggle with vulnerability, and instead of facing difficult emotions, they retreat into silence. This withdrawal may protect them in the short term, but it harms the relationship in the long term. It leaves the other person emotionally starved, desperate for connection, and overanalyzing every detail to try and understand what went wrong. That cycle creates an imbalance of power, where the avoidant becomes the one who dictates when and how communication happens, leaving their partner to accept crumbs of interaction. When silence is used as a shield, it doesn't just block out conflict, it blocks out love. True intimacy grows when two people are willing to be open, raw, and honest, even when it's uncomfortable. Without communication, love turns into guesswork and respect slowly deteriorates. Recognizing this hidden form of disrespect is essential because the moment you accept prolonged silence as normal, you are teaching the avoidant that they can avoid responsibility and still keep your presence. A healthy relationship requires dialogue, not withdrawal. And if someone consistently withholds their words, what they are really withholding is their respect for you and the relationship you are trying to build. When an avoidant minimizes your feelings, it can be one of the most painful and confusing experiences in a relationship because it leaves you questioning your own reality. You share your heart, your struggles, your frustrations, or even your joys. And instead of being met with empathy and understanding, you are brushed aside with dismissive remarks like, "You're overreacting," "You're too sensitive," or "It's not a big deal." On the surface, these words may appear casual, even harmless, but beneath them lies a powerful message: your emotions don't matter. This act of minimization is not just a lack of validation, it is a form of disrespect that quietly erodes trust and intimacy. The impact of this behavior runs deep. When someone repeatedly invalidates your feelings, you start to question yourself. You wonder if your emotions are exaggerated, if your perspective is flawed, or if perhaps you are truly too much for them to handle. This self-doubt doesn't just affect the relationship, it seeps into your identity. You begin silencing yourself before you even speak, thinking they won't understand anyway, or maybe I'm wrong to feel this way. This kind of internalized invalidation is one of the most damaging outcomes of being with an avoidant who minimizes emotions. You stop trusting your instincts, and eventually you start shrinking your emotional expression just to keep the peace. What makes this behavior so subtle is that it often disguises itself as rationality. The avoidant may insist they are simply being logical or level-headed compared to your emotional responses. But what they fail to recognize is that emotions are not a weakness. They are the raw truth of your inner world. Minimizing them is essentially saying that your truth is less valuable than their comfort. Respect in a relationship demands acknowledgement. Even if your partner doesn't fully understand your perspective, they should still honor it. But an avoidant's tendency to minimize emotions comes from their own fear of intimacy. By invalidating you, they avoid the responsibility of going deeper into emotional waters that make them uncomfortable. This pattern also creates distance. When you open up and are met with minimization, you feel unheard and unsafe. The relationship becomes a place where vulnerability feels dangerous rather than nurturing. Over time, this fosters resentment. You begin to feel that no matter what you say, it will be reduced to drama or overthinking. The connection becomes one-sided. You carry the emotional weight while they stay detached, safe in their avoidance. That imbalance is not love, it's control. Because if they can convince you that your feelings are invalid, they never have to face the consequences of their actions. In truth, minimizing feelings is one of the clearest signs of disrespect because it denies your humanity. To love someone is to value not only their presence, but also their inner experiences. If your emotions are consistently dismissed, you're not in a relationship built on mutual respect. You're in one where your voice is silenced. And no matter how subtle it seems, that silence is loud enough to break even the strongest bond. When an avoidant consistently chooses independence over intimacy, it may appear as though they are simply valuing their freedom, but in truth it is often a hidden form of disrespect that undermines the foundation of the relationship. Independence is a beautiful quality when balanced with connection. It allows two people to thrive individually while growing together. But when independence becomes a shield that is constantly prioritized over emotional closeness, it sends a subtle yet powerful message. The relationship is not as important as their personal comfort. Instead of building a bond of partnership, the avoidant creates distance, keeping the other person on the outside looking in. The harm lies in the pattern. Everyone needs space, and a healthy partner respects that. But avoidants turn space into a lifestyle. They'll cancel plans, avoid deep conversations, or choose solitary activities over shared moments, all while insisting that they just need time alone. While that may sound reasonable at first, the constant repetition of this behavior makes the other partner feel like a burden rather than a priority. Over time, the person on the receiving end starts to believe that asking for closeness is too much, that their need for affection or attention is somehow excessive. This creates a dangerous dynamic where one partner feels guilty for needing connection, while the avoidant feels justified in withholding it. What makes this especially disrespectful is that relationships are built on reciprocity. Both partners should feel valued, both should have their needs acknowledged. When one person repeatedly puts their independence first, they are essentially communicating that your needs for intimacy are negotiable, but theirs for space are non-negotiable. That imbalance quietly strips away equality in the relationship. You end up adjusting, compromising, and bending while they remain unyielding. And eventually, you realize the relationship is running on their terms, not shared terms. Another layer of damage is the emotional confusion it creates. When avoidants pull away in the name of independence, they often return when it suits them, expecting warmth and openness as if no distance ever existed. This push-pull cycle leaves you emotionally drained, longing for connection when they withdraw, then trying to quickly embrace them when they return. But what's happening beneath the surface is subtle disrespect. They get to enjoy independence without consequences, while you are left carrying the weight of the emotional gap. Respect in love does not mean merging into one person, but it does mean being willing to lean into intimacy when your partner needs it. Avoidants, by constantly hiding behind independence, often fail to show up when closeness matters most. Birthdays, crises, moments of vulnerability, all can be brushed aside in the name of needing space. But the truth is, choosing independence at the cost of intimacy is not strength, it's avoidance of responsibility. And the unspoken message it delivers is painful. My comfort matters more than our connection. In a healthy bond, independence and intimacy coexist, but when one is always chosen over the other, love becomes lopsided. What starts as a preference for space soon turns into neglect, and neglect is one of the quietest yet strongest forms of disrespect in any relationship. When an avoidant shows inconsistency in affection, it creates one of the most destabilizing experiences in a relationship. One moment they are warm, attentive, and even loving, and the next moment they are cold, distant, and withdrawn. This unpredictability isn't just confusing, it's deeply disrespectful because it keeps you emotionally off balance, never sure where you stand. Affection, when genuine, is meant to nurture security and trust. But when affection is inconsistent, it turns into a game of emotional push and pull, where you are left craving stability but only receiving fragments of love. This inconsistency is not random. It's often rooted in the avoidance fear of vulnerability. When they sense closeness growing, they pull away to regain their sense of control. When they fear losing you, they suddenly become affectionate again to reel you back in. While this may not always be intentional manipulation, the effect is the same. You are trapped in a cycle of hope and disappointment. Every time they show affection, you feel reassured that things might finally change, but the withdrawal that follows crushes that hope, leaving you more confused and emotionally exhausted than before. What makes this pattern so harmful is the way it conditions you. The human mind is wired to respond strongly to unpredictable rewards. Just like a gambler keeps pulling the lever on a slot machine for the chance of a win, you find yourself holding on to the relationship for the occasional moments of tenderness. This intermittent reinforcement keeps you emotionally hooked, even when the overall relationship is painful. You start waiting for the good days, tolerating the bad ones in the hope that affection will return. And while you hold on, your self-worth slowly diminishes because your emotional security depends on someone else's moods. The subtle disrespect in this behavior lies in its selfishness. Consistent affection requires effort, presence, and accountability. Inconsistent affection allows the avoidant to give just enough to keep you there without truly investing in the relationship. It creates a dynamic where your love feels conditional, available when they feel safe, withheld when they don't. Over time, this unpredictability not only damages trust, but also teaches you to doubt your own expectations of what a healthy relationship should look like. You begin to normalize inconsistency, telling yourself that some love is better than none, when in reality, the very inconsistency is a form of neglect. In relationships, respect means showing up consistently, even in small ways. It means your partner can count on you emotionally, not just when it's convenient. But avoidants often use inconsistency as a way to maintain distance while keeping the relationship alive on their terms. This isn't love, it's control dressed up as affection. And the most painful part is that you never know which version of them you're going to get, the affectionate partner you crave or the distant stranger who makes you feel invisible. True love is not supposed to feel like a guessing game. When affection becomes inconsistent, it's no longer nurturing, it's destabilizing. And if you find yourself living in constant uncertainty, always waiting for the next moment of closeness, you're not experiencing respect or intimacy. You're experiencing emotional imbalance disguised as love. When an avoidant avoids accountability, it becomes one of the clearest yet most frustrating forms of hidden disrespect in a relationship. Accountability is the backbone of trust, being able to admit when you are wrong, acknowledge when you've hurt someone, and take steps to repair the damage. But with avoidance, this often doesn't happen. Instead of owning their actions, they deflect, blame external circumstances, or even turn the issue back on you. What this really communicates is not just a refusal to take responsibility, it communicates that your pain doesn't matter enough to be addressed. And that is a quiet but powerful act of disrespect. This pattern usually shows up in subtle ways. If you point out that something they did upset you, they may respond with, "You're overreacting," or "That's not what I meant," instead of genuinely listening. If they forget something important, rather than apologizing, they'll say they were busy, stressed, or that you're expecting too much. Over time, you begin to notice that apologies are rare, and when they do happen, they're often empty, quick statements meant to shut down the conversation rather than repair the relationship. This lack of accountability makes it nearly impossible to build safety because you never know if your feelings will be honored or dismissed. The harm of this behavior lies in how it shifts the emotional burden onto you. If they refuse to own their mistakes, you're left carrying both your hurt and the responsibility of trying to fix the relationship. You become the one over-explaining, trying to make them understand, while they escape into silence, excuses, or defensiveness. Over time, this imbalance creates exhaustion. You start doubting whether your feelings are valid because every attempt to hold them accountable turns into an argument or avoidance. That constant cycle not only weakens the bond, it conditions you to stop speaking up altogether because it feels like nothing changes. Avoiding accountability also erodes respect because it shows a lack of humility. No one is perfect, and mistakes are part of every relationship. But when someone consistently refuses to own their faults, they are essentially saying that protecting their ego is more important than protecting your heart. Respect means valuing the relationship over pride. Without that willingness to be humble, to say, "I was wrong and I'll do better," the relationship becomes a one-sided effort where only one person is working to repair and maintain the bond. What makes this behavior even more toxic is the subtle manipulation it can create. When avoidants turn situations around and make you feel like you're the problem for bringing up issues, it becomes a form of gaslighting. You begin to wonder if you're being unfair, too demanding, or imagining things. This erosion of self-trust is one of the deepest wounds caused by their lack of accountability. The truth is, love without accountability is not real love. It's avoidance disguised as connection. Every strong relationship is built on two people who can admit when they are wrong and grow through it. When an avoidant repeatedly avoids accountability, what they are really doing is choosing comfort over growth, pride over love, and control over respect. And a relationship where accountability is absent will eventually collapse because respect cannot survive in its absence.